And if I look at it, I can see the actual records. Somebody was asking about this __ V.
Yeah.
I think what that is that as you start updating records, that number gets incremented. So that sometimes they'll keep an old copy of your record, but it stays as V __ 0, and then the updated one becomes V __ 1. I think that's sort of like a memory is coming to me of that being how they work. But again, the updating part of it is an extra credit piece of it, although on Monday I'm hoping I can come in with information about that. And then
Maybe.
so
I bet because we call it.
Where are-
Stream.
how many people have this working right now, doing, at least so you can, not the refresh, but the ability to display the data from the database? Still a number of people are working on that, right?
In the server app?
In the server app even, yes, let's start there, in the server app.
That works, yeah.
How many people have it working in the server app? How many people don't have it working in the server app? Okay, still a significant number. So let's look at that piece of it for a second today. And I'll switch back over to Congress Server. And then we'll go in the roots folder. And the first thing to check is, do you have the right username and password? And if you're confused about it, go to foo and foobar, right? So you can't have any, it can't be that you typed in the wrong username and password. Create a user that's foo and foobar for now. But maybe don't leave it up there forever, because it's a little too vulnerable. But then let me try something here. I have an option here that's called custom. I have an option here that's called Simple Connect. Let me just try this, I'm not sure it's gonna work.
MP collection.
And I'm gonna paste in the IP address of the Ubuntu server that we just installed into the top one for the Simple Connect, since it doesn't have a username or password on it. And then in index.js, you can specify whether you want to use MLab or one of the other connections. So now I'll look again in Connect. Even if this doesn't work, it should help you just understand how this piece of it works. So now I'll pass in the string simple in order to use the Simple Connect. Does that make sense to everyone? So we've been passing in MLab and it uses the MLab connection. But now in index.js, I'll pass in simple and it'll use, in theory, use the Simple connection. And I'm gonna go, and the Simple connection, let me look at it one more time.
Does the port stay the same?
The port will stay the same for Simple, because I have MLab running on the default port, 27017.
Okay.
And I don't know whether it's able to create a database if it doesn't exist. I just don't know the answer to that. I might experiment with it later, but maybe this wouldn't be the time to experiment with it. So I'm gonna create that. And Although I think it would work, but, so I'm gonna go to my server, I'm gonna type use test. Now I'm in the test, that means I've created at least some kind of a database there. And then if I do show tables, it shows that it's empty. I don't have anything in there at this time. What I'm trying to do is, for people who are having trouble connecting to MLab, I'm trying to set up an option.
I know that my data is getting pushed out there, but that middle button to get it is not working.
Do you have a connection, Greg, please?
How would I know? Okay.
And make sure all the living spaces are correct.
No, it doesn't look like it's
I'm in MLab, well, there's different ones, but there's test
The
them,
politicians.js
MLab.
seems to have all this.
That's,
The politicians does JS is supposed
so this is.
Oh,
what
yeah, that's what I like
copied.
the function.
Yeah, I was like, wow, what are other things?
Well, and I had even added it in,
Okay.
you know,
Right.
and, you know.
I mean, if I can
in the object.
write to MLab, clearly my.
It's working normally.
Yeah, so I don't think I have an MLab issue, I think I have some local.
You can check your,
I think so.
get all the functions. It's just,
In for the schema for a politician?
Schema, I believe, is like his, information.
Yeah.
In our React monitoring that we did, we made a change on Monday.
Right. So if I only have three values,
Yeah, it's a problem.
whatever, I mean.
No, I mean, try it, it works, sorry, it's still Monday.
Try just starting it again. I think I've never told. All right, let's not worry about that. Let's try to, I was thinking that would be simple and it's not. So I'm gonna go back to using MLab. Sorry about that. I'll quick post something that will make it simpler. I have to make an adjustment, I think, to the server to tell it to go. I was thinking maybe that would be really easy, but it's not. So I'm gonna go back to index.js and I'm gonna change simple back to MLab. And then it looks like right now we ought to, we ought to restart the server when we do that. So at the very bottom of the final, there's a little bit of text that shows how to install concurrently. Then, at the very bottom of the final, there's a little bit of text that shows how to install concurrently and how to insert it into your package.json file. So you can, and it will start your client and your server at the same time. And then, okay, so I'm back to connecting to MLab since that's what's working for me. Now, what errors are people getting when they try to do this?
So when I click get all, I'm not seeing any errors in console.log, and it's just, I mean, from the user perspective, it's just not doing anything.
Right, how about F12? Do you see it, do you get an exception from,
No, there's
no error when you do F12 either?
no.
Is politicians created is it in the InLab? Is it there?
Yes.
It's there.
Yes.
And so you were able to insert it, but you can't get it back out. Is that the issue?
Yeah, in fact, like it says I have 510 records, which means I've done it 5 times.
Right, okay, yeah, you're definitely getting it. So, Brenda, I'll get there, but,
Is Roy pushing the right data up there, or is
so-
it funny data like that?
okay,
Um,
now,
It's the right.
the first, this,
Well, it's right
I would
and
go
left.
about this as a debugging challenge then. Those were my failed loads earlier. But I would go about this, I would turn to the sources page, Jeff,
Okay, yes.
and I would go to Control.js in the JavaScript files. And then I would put a breakpoint on what's my line 21 where we call get.json with the all data route.
Catching up. Control.js, okay, I'm there.
And then on about line 21, there's the get all method. And there's a call to get.json.
Yes.
Put a breakpoint there.
And then click.
Yeah, and other people might want to follow along if you're having trouble trying to figure out what's going on, or if you're just curious. And then click get all, and you should hit here, right?
Well, that would probably explain at least half my problem.
Is it not reaching that point? Okay, now let's try to figure out why you're not reaching that point. Everybody else who's maybe having trouble, follow along, it's not me, just and Jeff, when I come up here, it's everyone. And, so let's look in index.pug first and make sure that your get all button has a tag #getall. This is index.pug. Because that means that button will have an ID of get all. And it's the key thing here in order to capture the button click. So, just to be absolutely clear, if we come back to the server itself, well, I'll show you that in a sec, but
So yeah, I had all of those, except the update, but I think most of us don't have that update.
if you go to the elements page, then you should see a button with an ID of get all, in case sensitivity almost certainly matters here.
Which file is that?
And so I went to the elements page, and it's a pretty simple page.
Oh, elements.
Where am I getting what now? No,
I got it. That's what I was gonna say. That's actually.
that's the actual, and now I'm in the debugger,
Okay.
in the developer tool. So see if you can bring that up, switch over to your running instance. Yeah, and then press F12. Elements, and see if you can find you might bring it down. And because these are, what we're doing here now is jQuery, which is probably what you all did in those of you who were in Kurt's course. Yeah.
How does actually break before you even get to the Congress server? Saying it can't find the module express?
Right, okay, that means you need to do npm install.
Yeah.
Probably yes. If it can't find Express, then from that directory, it may be that you've done it in Congress address, but not in Congress server.
Okay. What should we install?
What's that?
Which NPM installed, just regular NPM?
So I do have that.
Okay, so then you wanna come back to, the source here, or to your other source. And down here towards the bottom, we use jQuery to detect, to find, the first one is a selector, $, quote, # get all, is a selector saying find in the DOM for our HTML page, find the component, the element, the HTML element that has, an ID of get all.
I definitely do not have 67 through 70.
Then get them in there, because they need to be there.
Why does yours?
Where did you get that code?
Well, you're controlling.
Did I not give it to you?
I don't think so.
We have two.
Oh, we don't have what?
We have two.
I have
Insert
in,
validated and get all, but I
That's
don't have
fine.
the interconnection or the update, but your get all looks different than ours, because ours has a whole function in it. And yours just says get all of them.
Yeah, I've got
Another
insert.
function.
It's just, this is terrible.
So meaning, yours is much more condensed than the two that you gave us.
Right.
So does that mean that the get all function?
Okay, so, your get all should still work.
It does.
Yeah, but it's not very, it's not very complete.
Oh, those buttons.
There, one moment. Please. Say it again.
I know where it comes from.
Oh, I'm looking, what is it? I think it was back.
Was it MongoDB server?
No, it's Mongoose.
Mongoose React Basic?
Yeah, run on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now it's one move. I'm like that.
Okay, so the way our connections are set up, it currently is gonna, it does a switch thing where it first tries to do simple connect, and if that doesn't work, then it does custom. But we're all set up to use custom.
By default, I think we're using it.
We are, but it's not
I think it was
connect.js, right? You have like,
Yeah.
simple connect, custom, and lab connect, and then
Yeah, block
later on,
context,
do connection. It checks them.
That's it.
It looks like I have yet a third copy that I pasted in here, where I gave you the full get all, but,
Insert validated get all.
The way
All right,
that
let
we
me,
had it set up.
Yeah,
Well, on Monday, we set it up to use the custom kit. Right, that's the one that we put in our username and password
I'll
for.
just clear everything out of that.
Well, if it,
Because we're using the MLab connect,
Yes.
custom connect.
it is the
Yeah, it's
ML
the
Connect.
same. I'm on the-
The name is custom. That's all.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
Insert validated.
I put it all in the MLab connect function, I didn't custom connect function. I know what you're talking about, that's what I was.
Oh, okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
see
'cause
that
right
there
below
too.
it is-
Get all.
You're right, yeah. I don't know why I thought we were doing it in custom. I guess it doesn't matter.
I mean,
I
ultimately.
know there's times that they're.
Oh, wait. You're right, it is the MLab connection. That's, I did as well.
Oh, really?
I could do that. Sure, hit the line with that, and
Yeah.
mess it all up.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Is that? Maybe got you.
Do you want it there, or do you want it in
I don't
the curly
I
brace?
understand why we have it.
I think I do,
Just kind
yeah.
of culmination
Let's
of
see.
like 20 years.
Yeah, I'm pasting it in the wrong place.
Someone post that.
Should be here.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
No.
So the only way.
Trim white space.
So,
That'll be.
are you able to?
And then let's see, so I've got insert, I put insert collection in there and get all in there. Oh, wait, I see. I did actually have the insert valid data click here.
Right.
Right, the first two you already had. You already had insert collection, you already had insert validator, everything beyond that.
What changed since?
Actually, I'm gonna move it so they're all in the same place. And then, so I have insert and get all, right? So you all kind of wish I would have empty collection and update. I'm not sure they're really working, but.
Mine works.
I'm just weakening here at the end of the quarter and giving you too much stuff. My heart is, we've turned into putty and sad, sort of really.
We don't mind.
I know you don't mind, but I worry that my whole mental state is. I mean,
We
really,
appreciate you, Charlie.
well, yeah, see, that's the right approach, definitely, yeah. I don't know if, all right.
So Jackie, did you ever have a check credit card somewhere?
Did I what?
Did you just put the check credit card somewhere? The one that
Are you asking about the update you just did?
Yeah.
So it'll just take some time. It'll just take a little bit of time for it to get to, see calvert.net. It takes a little bit.
Yeah, it just takes a moment, yeah.
Fill.js is where we're going to have the function.
Okay, so, so they need, I think you can see, and then this finds the button. And this says, when the button is clicked, call the get all method. When the button is clicked, call the insert collection. When the button is clicked, right? And this is, the web runs off these calls, jQuery doing this. This is what it's huge about, but now it all looks very old fashioned. It looks like Model T because we all do everything in React now and we don't or Angular. But this was the way it was done for years and the way many people still do it, and there's no reason why not to do it using jQuery except for the people who complain about it. And so then in our program, we're still stuck there at the break point.
Can you show me where your collection is, where it was this time and your get all? Please, can you just go up the bottom and see where collection is? See on mine, it's right there. Perfect, thank you.
Did I not include that in the,
No.
gosh, it just makes you wonder, right?
It makes me
Yeah. I think I just have it be undefined at first, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And then this should be const, of course, these days. So, here we sit at our break point. So the first thing we wanted to do, which turned out to be fairly useful for us, was to see, I'm gonna refresh everything here and start again. Was to see, does get called. And now, it's working now? Yeah. And even though that was sort of odd, the way we did it, do you see that still we probably never would have figured out what was wrong, which was Charlie's documentation, or maybe my expectations of what you could do with it, which were hopelessly unrealistic, due to my fault, not yours. But here we can see that, because we could see you were going, no, it's not hitting a break point, it's not working, then we were able to start to determine, well, let's go back. Is the tag on the HTML page? And then are we capturing the click correctly with a correctly defined selector? And then does this method get called? And once we get here, then we can see, there's no, other than console.log, you gotta do one or the other, breakpoints or console.log or both, so you can determine what's getting called where. And then,
ruling out that we weren't hitting a breakpoint helped us hone in on, hey, maybe we're just not calling the function.
right, in many ways, exactly. In many ways, it was sort of good news, because it meant we had some relatively simple fundamental problem just hooking up the button to the method. We just had a wiring problem. And then once you know that, and also it gave us a chance to explore it a little bit, so probably a larger percentage of the class understands how that thing is wired. Now, in this method, let me go back to the editor, I think it's easier to see it in here. The indentation isn't perfect here, but let's not worry about it. There's several different things that happen here. If all goes well, it'll go to lines 22 and 23, that means it succeeded. If all goes well, it'll go to done and say, we're done, we're all finished with everything, we've called success, and it's all done. And then whether it succeeded or not, always will get called. Okay, so we have lots of chance to look at the data and play with it. But the other one we really care about is the fail option, which meant that something's all wrong on the server, or maybe we're having, we blow up trying to parse the data in the success section, perhaps.
Is this equivalent to try, catch, final, or?
It is very similar thing,
Or
yes.
do they also have those keywords for?
They absolutely have them here, but this particular method is done this way. Inside of jQuery, they almost certainly have a try-catch method that they're using. And then they say, depending on the way it went, they either call the success method, which is this one, or the fail method. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then so, if perchance we're here, then I can put a collection on a breakpoint on 22 and a breakpoint on 29, and then run again. I guess I'm not really. I hit the breakpoint, and then I run further, and here you can see it came to the collection place, which means the call succeeded. And the other way that I know the call succeeded is if I look at the command line, I can see that all data got called here. Now, I am doing a bad thing, and inside your Congress server, there should be something called nodemon.json. And it's got an open curly brace and a closed curly brace. And I've set verbose to true, which means it's doing a lot of output. And it's ignoring anything that happens in components. Now let's come back here for a second and look at all Mongo.
Ours says Bower components.
It says what?
Yeah, we
Bower
made a change on Monday to politicians.json and Bower components.
Good, because that's what we should have done.
Okay.
And I don't seem to have that. But here, this file, let's go look in. So let's look for a second and make sure we understand. When we call in, when we call to the server, it's this route and index that gets called. The one that's called all data, because we're asking that. And so that's what gets called. And because we're running the server in one place and the client in another, it should be clear to you they're two totally different programs. So something's being sent over the internet from one place to the other. These two programs are not connected. They simply have HTTP packets being sent back and forth across the internet to them, which is why the server could be running in Bangalore and we can be here and it'll still work, so long as we know the IP address of the server. And then it checks to make sure you're connected, and then it calls all Mongo get all data. And if we go into all Mongo and we go to get all data, we can see that it goes out and calls politicians.find. And it says, I want everything from it. I want to see all the politicians. And if there's an error, we throw an error, in which case the fail method would get called back on our server, back on our client. And then I write out whatever the JSON was, and that would cause NodeMon to restart because it's watching all the files. So I have to go into nodemon.json and tell it to, is this the syntax I have for you guys?
No.
What do I write?
It's politicians.json and Bower components.
I had it in reverse order, but.
But it's sort of like that, maybe in different
Yes.
order?
Yep.
Yeah. And did I have a dot or anything in front of politicians? It's just straight like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I shouldn't be having that problem that I was having. With things getting restarted all the time.
So the old
When you click get all, at the end of it says success writing file in our blog.
Yes.
I think you were just talking about that. That you write something out upon.
Right,
Can you
yes,
just
yeah, let me
explain
go
how
back
that's-
into it, maybe I got diverted by this problem, but here, I have this all Mongo write data, and I write all the data to a file called politicians.json.
Right.
And all Mongo write data is defined right beneath it.
Right.
And it's a call to FS, which is the built-in node file system, and it just writes everything out to disk like that. You don't have to do that, it's just kind of more a debug thing to see. And of course, if you've gotten back millions of rows, you wouldn't want to do that because it would be an expensive write, but we've only got 100 rows of data. So I'm doing it purely for debugging, but I had to tell NodeMon sits and watches and restarts the server whenever we edit any of our JSON or JavaScript files. And that's nice, we like that, because then we don't have to restart the server manually, but when we make a change. But here we wanted it to be quiet enough. Okay, now, with all these pieces in place, how many people are now seeing data here? Who's not seeing data there? Okay. This is a good time. We're out of time. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, this is today Wednesday?
Yes, it is.
So we do own the room after this, so there's some hope. Why don't I think while I've still got you all, before I start helping people debug, let's look at the client, the Congress address part of it. So now, I'm gonna switch from Congress server to Congress address. And I'm gonna go into Data Maven.
So, Congress addresses a different project than Congress server language language. But it's different from there, right?
Yeah, you have to open a separate, open web storage twice. And then it'll ask you, you wanna open in a new window, and you can say yes, so you can work on both. So start at least, oh, I did not, I didn't help.
Okay, so what we found was that, there's a certain time when the system's being initialized, when the component that we're loading is being initialized, and that's not the right time for us to read data. We want the component to load first. And so I give it just a default address to use while it's being loaded. And I pass that down here, this state.address, passes it by props down to address show. And so it's got something to chew on while we're waiting. Then once the darn thing is loaded, okay, component did mount will get called. What these are called is life cycle methods. And I thought we were gonna get through the whole quarter without ever calling a life cycle method in React. But right at the end, I realized we needed this. I couldn't figure out any other way to do it. So it says, we're finished loading. Okay, it says, the user is now looking at your component. And for a brief second, probably too fast for anybody to see in this case, they'll be looking at unknown as the address. And then, component did mount gets called, and I call this load from database method, or you could just put load from database inside of component did mount. And I'm doing the same thing we did before. I call data load addresses, I pass in a callback function, and I pass, and I get prepared to receive from it a count of how many records it read in. And then I set the address count. I set address to whatever I call get by index from elf logger, remember, way up here. Get by index is elf local storage, sorry. From elf local storage, we have this get by index method. And the key to that method, just so everybody understands it, and mine's ended up in my assets folder. I may talk about this in the final two. It's not an absolute necessity, but I've kind of moved everything into elf local, into assets, everything that's not index.js. I think I can delete address list.js. Oh no, that's the one I use to create my addresses with, but I'll see what I can do with that. But basically, I just have index in the root, and I moved everything else up into an assets folder. You don't have to do that, but I think it's cleaner. And in there, I've got this elf local storage, which I gave you whole. And it has a get by index method. And you pass in the index, and it turns it into those strings, elf 001, elf 002. and it gets it, so here in Data Maven, we get by index the address and we set the state. And when we call set state, remember that makes your render method get recalled. And now's the right time to recall, to do that, because it's already fully loaded. That's the key to the component did mount method, is that it's safe to call render, safe to call set state in here, because it's already fully loaded. Do you see what it's saying? It's saying, I did mount, I'm already loaded, I'm already ready to go. So now we can call set state. We couldn't do that in our constructor because it wasn't fully loaded, and the thing would blow up and say, because the constructor by default calls the render method. And then if we call the render method twice, it gets stuck in a loop. So, but here, it's saying component did mount is like the very last thing after everything gets loaded. I say I'm fully loaded, now I'll call component did mount. And now it's safe for us to set state, which means the render method will get called again, and it'll display the new address, right? So, the only piece
Load from database,
Or you took everything and encapsulated it into a function.
So then let's look at data loader. And I just pass in now, rather than passing in the JSON file, I just pass in the all data group. You know, you have data loader.
Under assets, yeah.
Oh,
There it is. And then, so what you should do is instead of passing in address list.json, pass in all data.
Yeah, but it needs the IP address of the server and everything.
No, it shouldn't right now.
All data.
This is the funny thing, okay? So here's the deal. Okay, let's look again. Okay, it's a good, you're making a very good point. You're going, but we're two different programs, so it shouldn't do it. Now, when we get in the final state of our program, Congress server will load Congress address, and they'll be the same program. I'll show you that in 1 minute. I'll show you that before we go, because it's simple. But right now, package.json, we added in a little line, proxy. Yes, you did. You must, or it wouldn't be working. Okay.
I don't see that.
Then you actually are hard coding in the, okay, if, okay, all right, sorry, okay. I get confused maybe as to what I told the which class. Sorry about this, okay. And then it's all part of this concurrently thing. And also, in package.json, add this line near the top.
Can you specify that that's the Congress address we're adding that to rather than Congress server?
Congress servers will get it.
When you say package.json, that exists in.
Also, in Congress address, thank you,
Thank
good
you.
call, very good call, thank you. In its package.json, add this line near the top, thank you, that was a very important clarification. And so, the first few lines look like this.
the Go and the Go concurrently, is that in Congress address? Package.json?
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah, I think so,
Yeah.
because I didn't have a scripts. in
No,
my-
okay, it wasn't an important distinction, because it was already there. We did this in the package.json for Congress address.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I just lost clause. So we're gonna take that thing out of that distinction.
And that's what enables the fetch,
Well, it actually
Oh.
still parses, because and
Yeah.
also it's also still in Congress address. And it's package.json, add this line here. And what this will do is during this development process, it will take any methods that gets, any information that gets sent to it and pass it over to the program that's running at 30025, which is our server. All right, now, then you go, but what about in the real world? So, if we go back to package.json, there's another one called build. And it will create a new folder called build in Congress address that'll have the shipping working version of our code in it. So I'm gonna stop everything running now. And I'm gonna go